Part 6, Jason Lives. Gotta be my favourite. I flip-flop between 4 and 6 all the time. Right now, it's 6, but that could change. So at the end of part 5, Tommy's got the mask. What's Tommy going to do with the mask? Let's find out. The movie starts with Tommy and Hawes in transit on the way to Jason's grave. Tommy tells Hawes exactly what he's going to do when he gets there to make sure that Jason never comes back. They've come to dig up Jason's body, burn it, and finally put an end to this, once and for all. Tommy spent years trying to get away from what happened at Crystal Lake. He killed Jason as a child in the final chapter, but killing him never gave Tommy any peace. Jason stayed in his head ever since. Hawes can see that digging up a grave is a bad idea, and he asks Tommy what's the good in all this. Tommy barely answers him, and he's already digging. When they open the coffin, Jason is still there. The body's decayed, but he's dead. For a few seconds, Tommy has got proof of what he came for. Then, he loses control. He pulls a metal fence post out of a fence, climbs into the grave, and starts driving it into Jason's chest, again and again. It brings you back to the end of the final chapter. Tommy no longer looks like an adult who came here with a plan. He looks like the kid who snapped after Jason tore through his family house. Eventually, he stops. He drops Jason's hockey mask into the coffin. He thinks he's done what he's come here to do. The lightning hits the fence post and wakes Jason up, and Hawes tries to stop him, but Jason barely has a reaction. Then Jason grabs Hawes and punches his heart out of his back. Tommy runs as Jason pulls up the mask from the grave, puts it on, and walks into the rain. I really like this opening. It's got a proper old horror film feel to it, almost like Friday the 13th has wandered into Frankenstein territory. The graveyard and the storm give Jason's return some weight, but Jason himself never feels silly. Tommy has caused the disaster within the film. He's dug Jason up and left that fence post in him, but nobody could expect lightning to bring a corpse back to life. Tommy thinks he's finally beaten the thing that's been following him since part 4. Then Jason wakes up as if Tommy's anger has brought him back. The kill on Hawes tells you straight away that the old Jason has gone. He used to be a big hard man who could survive almost anything, but now he's supernatural. The title sequence follows with Jason walking across the screen like James Bond before slashing at the camera. The Bond reference is obvious, and it's meant to be funny, but it doesn't turn Jason into a joke. Jason Lives knows the audience has seen these films before. It lets you in on the joke without taking the danger away from Jason. Tommy makes it to Forest Green Police Station and tells Sheriff Mike Garris what's happened. He says Hawes is dead, Jason's alive, and the camp is in danger. Garris hears a former patient from a psychiatric institution claim that a corpse has climbed out of a grave during a storm. There's no normal reason for him to believe it. From his point of view, Tommy is unstable, obsessed with Jason, and possibly dangerous. So, he locks him up. That gives Jason time to get away from the cemetery and move back towards Crystal Lake. Only the town doesn't call itself Crystal Lake anymore. It's now Forest Green. The name change is exaggerated, but it's believable. A town with that history would want to distance itself from the Crystal Lake murders, but I still think it could have kept part of the old name in there somewhere. Crystal Green or Lake Forest would sound more like a real rebrand than pretending that Crystal Lake never existed. While Tommy's stuck in a cell, a couple of new camp counsellors, Darren and Lisbeth, get into some car trouble on the way to Camp Forest Green. Jason steps into the road in front of their car. Their night ends with Jason sorting them both out. They're alone near the camp, miles from help, and Jason has found them first. Part 5 took the series in a different direction. Jason Lives brings it back to the camp, the woods, and Jason himself being the killer again. Garris is a very 80s sheriff. He has a one-liner for nearly every situation, and most of them, well, nearly all of them, are a bit cheesy, but he does fit the film. Tommy's turned up claiming there's a dead man loose in the woods. Garris sees him as a problem and wants him out of town. The one thing that I don't buy is what happens later. Someone in Tommy's position would probably, well, almost certainly, be escorted back to the institution, not dropped off outside of Forest Green and told to stay away. The next morning, the other counsellors come to the police station because Darren and Lisbeth haven't turned up. Megan Garris is with them. That's the sheriff's daughter. She meets Tommy and seems interested in him, almost before she knows anything about him. It helps the film, but it's hard to believe. You can see the story putting Megan in place as the person who's going to help Tommy later on. Tom Matthews plays Tommy very different than John Shepherd in part 5. The earlier Tommy was quieter, more damaged and harder to read. This version is louder and much more willing to charge towards danger. Matthews can be over the top, but he's more likeable. He also feels like a completely different character, carrying Tommy Jarvis's name. Camp Forest Green opens and buses arrive with actual children. For me, this is the most believable camp setup in the series. The place feels busy and properly run. Children are everywhere and the counsellors are trying to keep the day moving. You can believe that parents would actually send their kids there. That gives the setting more life than the camp in the original film. It also puts a new thought in the audience's head. Jason has always hunted teenagers and adults. This time, he's going to be closer to children. Would he hurt them? The film leaves that hanging in the air. Later in the film, Jason walks into a cabin where children are asleep, but he leaves them alone. You could read that as Jason seeing something of himself in the kids. He was a child at Crystal Lake before everything went wrong. The film doesn't spell that out, but it gives you room to think. Jason then comes across a group of paintballers in the woods. They feel as though they've been gathered together just so Jason had more people to kill before he reached the camp. The scene does give Jason a machete though, and it starts to shape the look of part 6. The darker clothes and utility belt make Jason look strangely practical for a man who's just climbed out of a grave. That makes him feel a bit more human, which is an odd choice after turning him supernatural, and I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. The mask and dead face underneath it are brilliant though. Part 6 Jason looks like a corpse that never stopped moving, and his head looks a bit like a turnip. The humour in the film is aimed at the audience, but it never takes you out of it. You're in on the joke. Jason Lives knows what kind of film this is, and it has fun with it. But Jason himself still feels threatening every time he turns up. The paintball group might feel like extra bodies tacked on, but Jason walking away with the belt and the machete helps build the version of him everybody remembers from this film. Garris escorts Tommy out of Forest Green. On the way, Tommy breaks free and drives towards the cemetery. He wants to prove that Jason's grave has been dug up. When he gets there, the grave's been covered over. Hawes is lying in Jason's coffin. Jason has gone. Tommy knows exactly what he's looking at, but everyone around him sees another reason to think he's lost his mind. Martin, the caretaker, covered the grave because he didn't want to be blamed for digging it up, but he has no idea what happened. Garris sees Tommy shouting in a graveyard and talking about Jason as if he's still out there. That settles it for him. He takes Tommy to the edge of Forest Green and tells him not to come back. Tommy is completely stuck by this point. He knows Jason's alive, but every attempt to prove it makes him look worse. Nobody is going to search the camp because a man with Tommy's history says there's an undead killer in the woods. That puts Tommy and Jason on separate paths for the rest of the film. Martin has a bit of Crazy Ralph about him. He's the local oddball who looks as though he should understand more than he does. The difference is Ralph knew that Crystal Lake was dangerous. Martin is only worried about getting in trouble at work. Jason kills Martin, then goes after a couple who see too much. They're mainly there to push the kill count up before the bigger scenes begin. Tommy's the good guy, Jason's the bad guy, and the rest of the film's just building towards them meeting again. Tommy is trying to get back to the camp before it's too late. Jason is moving towards it without anything slowing him down. That's a simple setup, but it gives part 6 a proper direction. It stops feeling like a collection of kills, and it feels like Tommy has one last chance to finish all this. Then we get Court and Nikki in the RV. This is one of the classic scenes in the Friday the 13th series. They drive into the woods for some privacy, and Jason gets inside the RV without anybody noticing. By the time Court realises there's something wrong, Nikki's dead and Jason is stood beside him. The RV crashes and rolls onto its side. Jason steps out and stands on top. That image is iconic. It makes Jason look enormous, and it turns what could have been a routine kill into a proper set piece. The RV scene is one of the reasons the film stays with people. Jason standing on top of the RV after it goes over is one of those shots that people remember long after the film ends. There's broad comedy around Court and Nikki before Jason turns up, but once Jason arrives, the joke's over. When Sheriff Garris starts finding bodies, the timing leaves Tommy as the obvious suspect. Tommy spent the day saying Jason's back. Now people are dead in ways that bring Jason to mind. Sheriff Garris thinks Tommy's cracked. Tommy gets in touch with Megan and asks her for help. He wants a way of getting Jason into Crystal Lake and keeping him there. Megan goes with him. I don't think she fully accepts that Jason's rose from the dead. She knows people are dying, and she knows that Tommy couldn't have been responsible for every death. For her, that's enough. Before they reach the camp, Garris stops them. Megan can prove Tommy was with her during the RV kills, but Garris still locks him up. By now, Jason's made it to the camp. He kills Sissy while she's trying to find Court, then Paula, as the children begin to realise something has gone badly wrong. The camp has gone from a normal summer camp to a place full of frightened children and missing adults. Gareth heads towards the camp with his deputies. When he finally sees Jason, I don't think he's got the time to decide whether that's really Jason Voorhees or not. He sees a huge masked man who won't go down when he's shot. That's enough. Jason takes out the deputies and turns on Gareth. Gareth fights back, but Jason grabs him, bends him backwards and snaps his back. This is one of Jason's most brutal kills in the whole series. He doesn't need a weapon. He gets hold of Gareth and tears through him with his bare hands. It's physical and vicious, showing exactly how far Jason's changed since the earlier films. He's no longer waiting behind trees and waiting for people to make mistakes. He walks through people and that's it. He ends them. Megan breaks Tommy out the cell and they race back towards the lake. Tommy's worked out that Jason can't be dealt with through guns or brute force. He needs to be taken back to the place where all this started. Tommy takes a boat onto Crystal Lake with some petrol, a chain and a boulder. He then calls Jason towards him. Jason follows him straight into the water. He's not seeing a trap, he's making a bad decision. He makes a ring of petrol around the boat and sets fire to it. Tommy gets the chain that's connected to the boulder and puts it around Jason's neck. Jason sinks beneath the lake. For a moment, it looks as though Tommy has finally put him back where he belongs. Then Jason drags Tommy down with him. Megan dives in after them. Jason grabs a leg, but she uses the boat propeller to force him away and send him back down. Tommy is pulled to the shore and brought back. After everything he's been through since part 4, he's got a win. I always thought the series would bring him back after this. It never did, which was a shame. Part 6 leaves him in a much better position than the previous 2 movies. Jason is left under the water, chained to the bottom of Crystal Lake. Then his good eye opens wide. He's not dead, he's just waiting.